Hey guys, thank you for watching. Sometimes slow is not slow enough. So what I'm going to demonstrate is how you can change the spur gear inside your TRAXXAS TRX 4. So we are going to change the spur gear inside the TRAXXAS TRX 4. So I bought this one from TRAXXAS and this is a 45 tooth. And we are going to replace the standard one for the 45 tooth, so it's got a lower crawl. So the first step is to remove the motor. By unscrewing these 3 screws you would be able to remove the motor. So let's start with that. So all 3 screws are out and this cap is just holding the motor and the motor place inside the body itself. So disconnect the leads and put this aside. So the next step is to remove the speed controller, the ESC, and you're doing this by removing this screw and this screw. Okay, the ESC is loose. The next step is to remove the battery compartment. And for doing this you have to remove this hex and this hex screw, and there is one over here and one on the other side. Okay, the next step is to remove the battery compartment by itself. So what you can do, you can just wiggle around and then it comes loose like this. And then when you make like a funny turn, you can remove it. Because it is a U-shaped chassis, normally you have to disassemble a lot of the car to get this one out. But by making this like this, a funny turn, it is easy to remove it without completely disassembling the car. So now you can see the gearbox over here, and the gearbox is secured by only 3 screws. There is one over there, and there is one over there, and one at the bottom beneath the chassis. So that's this one. So let's do this one first. Okay, the next step is to remove the gearbox. You can make it yourself easily by removing the drive shaft, but you can also leave them connected, because when you're just moving the gearbox around, you are able to disconnect the telescopic drive shaft. So just pull it backwards, and as you can see, this one is loose already. And then just, with a bit of fiddling you can remove also the second one, like this. And now the gearbox is totally loosened except for the cables, but I will keep these on, so there's no worry about that. And now you can easily get to the screw that is holding the spur gear. So now we are going to undo this screw so we can remove the spur gear. Don't lose those tiny washers. Just place them somewhere so you can't lose them, because you will need them all. So now you can remove the spur gear. So as you can see, it's a very simple design, but it's easily to swap them out. So these are the friction plate, and this is just like the clutch. So we have to remove those two and put them onto the new spur gear. So when looking at this Spur gear, I thought that this clutch system, that you can remove this, but actually it is glued into this gear. So we are just going to use the new gear, but without the slipper clutch. We're just going to tighten the screw, because the slipper clutch, in my opinion, yeah, is not very useful. But yeah, I'm going to just leave this one out and just put a new one in without those things. So here's the new one, and this is the old one. So as you can see, this is slightly bigger. This has 39 tooth and this one has got 45 tooth. So this in comparison will give you a slower crawl, but you have to pay attention when you increase the size of the Spur gear. You should also change the position of your screws here, because otherwise you cannot fit the motor. So on here are numbers, are digits, and in the manual you can see which hole you should use. So this is a 17 tooth pinion, and we cannot use the 17 tooth in combination with this Spur gear. So we are going to change this 17 tooth to an 11 tooth, and for this setup you have to use hole C as it is in now. So the only thing we are going to do, we are going to change the Spur gear and we are going to change the pinion gear, but we do not have to change the setting of the motor plate, the motor mount. So get this one, put it back on here, get your iron plate back on, and all the washers you took out. The silver one should go in last. Then you've got the screw, or the nut, sorry. Okay, if you're trying to tighten this one, you would not be able, because it will spin the drive shaft. So what you can do, you can just hold the drive shaft so it cannot turn, or you can use something to prevent it spinning, because the shaft that's running from here all the way through there is sticking out of here, and you can put like yeah, something in there. I'm using a hex. Put it in there, so when moving, you see the hex moving, you see? So when tightening it, the hex prevents it from turning. So just tighten it. I've tightened it all the way because we are not using the slipper function, so now it's totally locked. So now it's time to put everything back together. So a bit tricky can be to place the gearbox back in its position, because you also need to connect the two drive shafts. If you're doing it like I do, yeah, make sure to do the back one first and slide it all the way onto the telescopic shaft, and then you are able to make a funny turn so it can re-enter its original position. And when it's beneath this part, then you are able to get the front drive shaft and put it all back together. Okay, the next thing to do is put the 3 screws back which are holding the gearbox. So one over there, and one underneath the chassis. So the next step is get your battery box and put it back into the U-shaped chassis rails. To do so, yeah, make a funny angle like this, and then you should be able to put it back in the rails without completely assemble the car. So when it's back in, you should push it all the way backwards, so it is touching the back piece here. And then you are able to put the screws back in. So you've got one over there, and two on each side, and then it's secured. Alright, now it's time to place the ESC back on. So keep track of the wires, that they are not trapped underneath the ESC, but they should just go like this between the ESC and the screw hole. So pay attention while put the ESC back in. Okay, the last step should be the motor, but because we have changed the the spur gear to a bigger size, we are going to reduce the pinion gear, because this is a 70 tooth and it won't fit to this setup. So we are going to remove this one and replace it with an 11 tooth. If you're undoing the screw here, if it's not doing it, make sure to use a heater to get it loose. Otherwise you can easily strip the screw itself, and that would be a pain in the ass to get out. So if it's not doing it the first time, just stop and heat it first and then get it out. So this is a lot smaller, as you can see. So 17 tooth, 11 tooth. As mentioned, but with this setup I do not have to change the motor plate. If you're using a different size, for example like 12, 14 or what else, you have to check the manual first, because you have to adjust the motor mount. So before tightening the screw all the way, make sure it is the right setup. So it should be in like it is now. You see it? Yeah, they are touching beautifully. So let's tighten it a bit more. And now we are going to put the motor back in. Okay, the last thing to do is to reconnect the motor. I'm using a different motor than the stock one from TRAXXAS, and the stock one is a reversed motor. What that means, it's turning the other way around than you're used to. So to make sure my car is driving forward, I'm just changing the leads. So I am putting black into red and red into black, and then it should drive into the right direction. Okay, alright guys, this was it for today. If you got any questions, please leave a comment below, and please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. See you next time.